Hello and welcome to the fourth Gender Pay Gap report in this series. This is a series where I analyse and look at the action plans of a few gender pay gap reports that are out in the public domain. My name is Michelle Jimmer. I am the Director of Equality Pays and I help firms close their gender pay gaps. So let's dive straight into this one. So this one that I'm looking at today is an engineering firm, much bigger than the previous ones that I've looked at before. This one has around 14,000 employees. Looking at the mean and median pay gap figures, they are not dissimilar to the national average. Mean 16.8%, median 19.6%. Like I said, pretty standard numbers. And obviously, with it being a male-dominated sector, we expect to see some pay gap. However, the bonus pay gaps are higher. As you can see, the mean is 26.7% and the median is 17.6%. And then at the bottom of the screen, I have the quartiles. So lower quartile, 65% men compared to 35% women. Lower middle, it jumps up. Men comprise of 79.7% and women are 20.3%. Upper middle, we see the same pattern continuing, 85% men, 15% women. And then when we get right to the top at upper, we're looking at 86.7% are men and 13.3% are women. So this was quite an interesting report to look at. Like I said, it's a well-known engineering firm, 14,000 people. So whatever data they put out and whatever they decide to do in their action plan, the impact of what they do is going to be felt far and wide because they employ so many people. So it was very interesting to see the data in comparison to organizations that are much smaller. But like with many organizations, both within their industries and outside of the industries, some of the issues that they have are very similar in that they're working in environments that traditionally and still are very male dominated, and especially right at the top. So based on the information that was provided in their action plan, which was fairly comprehensive, it's the most comprehensive one that I've looked at in this in these 10 that I'm looking at. So I have a few additional things that could be added, or additional things that I think need to be considered in putting their plan together. So if I was working with this organization and I had to give them 3 things that I would tell them to do in addition to what they're already doing in their action plan, it would be these things. So the first is tackling the issue of unconscious bias. Now, they have put in their action plan that they are doing unconscious bias training for 1,300 of their managers, and it's a comprehensive training program using a combination of classroom learning, e-learning and interactive videos, which on the face of it sounds fine. I would hope, and I can make assumptions, but I would hope that it's not a one-day workshop, or it's not just a series of one-day workshops and managers are expected to kind of take this information in in a learning environment, and then they're kind of left to their own devices. It would be useful for them to have a very holistic approach to tackling the issue of unconscious bias, because everybody has unconscious bias. So if it takes us all of our lifetime to soak up our biases and act on them and behave in a certain way because of them, it stands to reason it will take time to undo some of those behaviors and thought patterns as well. So I would definitely say to them that whatever the unconscious bias training program entails, it needs to give people the time to embed the learning, to be challenged, to challenge other people, to seek opportunities to change their behaviors, to analyze their behaviors and mindset and thought patterns and the things they do and why they do it, and also to give them the time to really reflect on their own biases, because it is and can be very confronting work. People need time to be able to work through those things. So I would definitely really champion the holistic approach. But in particular for this organisation, I would pay particular attention to promotion because of the kind of speed in which the numbers of women go down the higher up the quartiles that you go. So it could be that there is some unconscious bias in terms of who gets promoted or why people get promoted and why they don't. And there could be, you know, barriers that are placed in the way for women to be promoted, or it could be that when it comes to promotion, certain people are just overlooked. So I would definitely make sure that that is embedded into the unconscious bias training. And if they wanted to look at a specific area, the promotion aspect for women as they're trying to move up the ladder or in the different quartiles is what I would advise. The second thing is around upskilling line managers and existing staff, because in their action plan, another thing they've talked about is their returnship program, and they're talking about wanting to encourage more women into technical roles, you know, because of the industry they're in. And they're going to be implementing a career returners program, which is fantastic. I have no issue with that. But what I think is really important with returnships or any kind of career returners program is that it's not just about the person, it's not just about upskilling the person that is the returner, but it's also about upskilling the organization. Because what we don't want to have is a cohort of women who've stepped out of the workplace for whatever reason, coming back into the workplace only to find that the structures are incredibly rigid and don't support the things that they need to enable them to not only return to work, but stay in work and stay in meaningful work and then progress. So some of that has to, you know, some of the organisation needs to take on some responsibility in looking at the way that they do things. And one aspect is upskilling line managers and existing teams to understand what are the unique challenges that career returners face and how can they ensure that in the way that they do business, in the way that their teams are run, in the way that you know, people speak to each other and work is allocated, etc. How can they ensure that that returners' unique needs are being met to enable them to stay in the workplace and feel welcome and have good workplace experience? Because at the end of the day, the aim of returnship programs is to retain people in the workplace, but in order to do that, it needs to be a workplace culture where people feel valued and feel like they want to stay. But sometimes that requires training and upskilling line managers and existing teams. So that is definitely something that I would advise that they look at. And the last thing is around shared parental leave. Now, this organisation has quite a generous shared parental leave policy at the moment. With pregnant staff who are wanting to take maternity leave or anybody wanting to take adoption leave, they currently provide 21 weeks full pay, which is pretty good considering there are lots of organisations who don't provide any enhanced payment. Now, alongside that, for shared parental leave, what this firm offers is 2 weeks paternity pay and then 10 weeks full pay, which is better, again, than most organisations. But what I would say is match it so that shared parental leave is at the same rate as maternity and adoption leave. And the reason I say that is because there is a lot of reticence from men to take shared parental leave because most employers don't offer anything enhanced. Now, this employer does offer enhanced, but it's not on the same level as maternity leave. And so I think if they're serious about closing the pay gap and they understand that encouraging more men to take up shared parental leave is one of the ways to do it, then I would say match maternity and adoption leave. And another thing, what they could do is that they could use it as an innovative way to open up temporary space for people who are, you know, possibly in the grade below, to be able to step up for a short amount of time to gain experience. And, you know, it's up to the organisation whether they want to say that it's ring-fenced women, or they could say that they want to really encourage women or people from BME backgrounds, etc., to step up into these roles on a temporary basis, because then it then helps them with their career plans, because it means that they have a little bit of experience of stepping up into a role that's a pay grade above them for a decent amount of time. So in some senses, if you kind of think of it in that way, it would give this firm the opportunity to address two issues at once. So that is the third thing, to look at the take up of shared parental leave and look for ways to make it seem more attractive, not only for men in the organisation, but for the business as well, because obviously that will help with closing the pay gap in the long run. So those were my 3 top tips for this organisation. I hope that you found this useful and enjoyable. And if you feel at any point any of the issues that I've raised in the analysis that I've given, if you feel that any of them are similar to what you're experiencing in your workplace, and you want to talk through ideas of things that you could do to help close your pay gaps, then please do contact me. My details are on the screen, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye for now.